Hi. Do not shy away from the cookies and cocoa in the back. If you want to grab some of those while we get started, it's here for all of us. Welcome, everyone. I call the Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will approve the agenda for this evening. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. All right, this evening we have a presentation from our Gig Harbor High School astronomy class. We have Eric Volgemuth, who teaches science and computer science at Gig Harbor High School, and he brought some students from his astronomy class this evening. They're going to present on some work that they've been doing. So if you would, come on up to the podium and share with us what you've been up to.
Can you? You're gonna have to use the mic.
Step up to the mic, or if you need to, you can detach it and hold it and pass it around.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present about our observations. My name is Julia Kinney.
My name's Emily Laska.
I'm Nathan Lau.
I'm Savannah Curette.
So as instructors of this program, we have a lot of leadership skills, and one of them is responsibilities. And one of the things we are responsible for is checking the weather to see if a night will be good for observation. We are also responsible for setting up the telescope, and we usually do this early enough so that by the time night falls, we can start observing. And then we also photo edit these images inside Photoshop to give them a lot of color.
Another job that we have is we have to instruct other astronomy students when they come out for observations, because the telescope and the software is complicated and it can get buggy. But it's not just astronomy students. A lot of students from Mr. Wolgamuth's physics classes have also come out to join us at observations.
Right. And we also do a lot of problem solving. This is usually because we may have forgotten something in one of the many complex processes we have to complete during the course of the night. And all of these can be these can set us back a lot and can be very time consuming. It's good to have them because that's how we learn how to use the telescope and the technology.
This is our setup video to show how we actually set up the telescope at the beginning of our observations. Every time we go out, we have a checklist that we follow to make sure we don't make any mistakes that could possibly damage the telescope.
So the first thing we do is we set up the legs, and then we add the stabilizer just to make sure it's secure. And then we add the mount on top with the counterweights, just to make it even more stable so it doesn't move when we're taking pictures. And then we add the telescope on top. Mr. W does both of these things. And then with the electronic filter wheel, the autofocuser, and the camera.
And the electronic filter wheel is important because there's different narrow bands of light filters that are in it that can help us see more when we look at certain things. So for example, when we look at stuff like the Heart and Soul Nebula, it's easier to see stuff in hydrogen alpha, sulfur 3, and oxygen 3, whereas the Andromeda Galaxy is better seen in visible light. And when we edit the pictures, it gives it more depth if we have multiple layers to put on top of each other rather than just looking at it in one filter.
Next, we have the cables, and there are these specific cables that would go into the specific parts of the telescope. And we plug these into the telescope, and then we also plug them into hub ports and the computer. So it allows us to control the telescope from the computer, allowing us to take pictures.
Thank you for watching.
So I work with the Celestron Nexstar 8SE, which has been extremely interesting to work with. I mainly use it for planetary viewing, more specifically Jupiter and Saturn. However, I've had a multitude of issues with it that has taken extraneous amounts of time to solve. In the very beginning, I had a lot of issues connecting the ASCOM drivers and polar aligning the telescope, which basically helps with navigation and tracking of deep space objects. I used to have to use the Celestron's hand control to manually navigate it to 3 separate stars to polar align the telescope, which is a very time-consuming and meticulous process. Thankfully, I've been able to bypass that. And so now what I'm currently working on is researching how to take photos once I've focused in on a planet, and then how to edit said photos. The process for this is more complicated and different than working with the other telescope, so I've actually yet to figure out how to do that, but I'm working with it.
So one of the more important things we have to make sure, and we do, is check the weather to make sure that we have opportunities to go out and use our telescopes. We use the sky chart from the University of Puget Sound Observatory, and on this forecast we look at usually about 4 things, and first is cloud cover. When we look at this, we want to make sure that we have some blue squares here. This usually means that it's clear, so we always want to make sure we have that. And then we also look at transparency and seeing. And this usually relates to the atmosphere and how much air is moving around. And we usually don't want a lot of that because it really degrades the value of our images. And then lastly, we're going to look at humidity. This usually does not change just because we live in Washington, and it's usually always 90 to 100%. And this can be important to look at because if our equipment gets wet or frozen during the course of the night, it can really damage our equipment.
Some of the software that we use is Stellarium, PHD2 Guiding, SharpCap, FocusLink, and ASCOM Driver, and they all help us drive the TeleView telescope and control it from the computer.
So Stellarium is a software that both of the telescopes use. Once both of the telescopes are completely set up and polar aligned, you can choose which object you like to view, and Stellarium will automatically take the telescope to said object. It's very important when using Stellarium to watch the cables and cords to make sure that nothing disconnects or breaks, as it can move the telescope quite quickly. Personally, I've used Stellarium to navigate to Jupiter before.
One of the other softwares we use is PHD2 Guiding, which it picks a star and then it tracks it throughout the night as the earth and sky moves. The green box right there is the star that it's picked, and we have to continuously check on this throughout the night because if it disconnects or something, then that could be the cause of some of the problems we're having.
And so this is SharpCap, and this is the software that we mainly use to control the telescope. The first thing we do when we open this software is that we make sure that the camera is connected to it. And then we start a process called polar alignment. And what this means is that we have to get the telescope to where it's looking and aligned right at the North Star, which is called Polaris. And this process is done by manually rotating the telescope in 2 axes called right ascension and declination. And we do this until SharpCap tells us that we are fully aligned and looking right at it.
So the next thing we're going to want to do after polar aligning is begin to take exposures or pictures for about 3 to 5 minutes each. During this process, the camera will take in a small amount of light for those 3 to 5 minutes in the wavelength that we choose. And this could be either hydrogen alpha, visible light, sulfur 2, or oxygen 3. This usually depends on what kind of object we're taking pictures of. If we're taking which we usually take pictures of nebulas, we will usually use a mixture. And then this leads us to LiveStack.
LiveStack is a feature in SharpCap that shows us basically like what the exposures are and whether they're good or not. It's looks like a bar graph where each bar represents an exposure. It usually shows up at the bottom of our screen right there, and each bar has an FWHM number, that shows basically how clear the image is, how well it's stacked on top of each other one. The number's normally in the 3 to 4s, but we've gotten it as low as 2.62, and the lower the number, the better.
So some other software we use is Focus Links and ASCOM Driver. So Focus Links just connects the autofocuser to our computer so that we can change that through the computer. And we also use ASCOM Driver, which is very important because it allows us to connect the mount to the computer so that we can move the telescope through the computer.
Okay, so most of the problems that we have ran into originate within the SharpCap software. A common problem that we have encountered was the red bars issue. And this happens when SharpCap is unable to successfully align a newly taken photo and trying to stack it on top of its so-called reference photo. And this usually occurs because that reference photo doesn't have enough stars within it. So when SharpCap tries to take that newly taken photo and then stack it on top of that reference photo using the stars as a guideline, SharpCap gets confused and then gives us a red bar, which then discards that newly taken photo. In terms of the autofocuser, we've had a little bit of trouble trying to get our autofocus to work properly. It is fairly new, so we are still trying to learn how it works, but most of the time, we mainly have to manually focus the autofocuser on whatever we're looking at. As for photo editing, we use the Photoshop software. This is because it is more advanced, and this allows for higher possibilities in terms of how we want to colorize these images that we're taking. Some of the tools that we use on Photoshop are things such as curves and levels, and this just helps bring out that detail hidden within the image. We also colorize them and layer them in Photoshop in order of red, green, and blue. And this helps blend the colors together, which provides a really clarified and very, very colorful image. We originally used the Pixlr software. It is super simple, so it's good for beginners to use. And it is also similar to how Photoshop works. But there are some limitations as to how far you can photo edit in Pixlr compared to Photoshop.
Some things we want to do in the future is eventually have school-wide participation, maybe have a night that everybody in the school is invited to come watch us observe, learn how the telescope works and all that stuff. We also want to go either invite the elementary schools to come and observe with us or go teach in their classrooms. This could be a good experience for them, and also maybe introduce them to something they want to pursue in the future.
And then my main goals with the Celestron is basically being able to take photos of the planets, but I would also like to begin solar astronomy, which is observing the sun.
So this is one of the unedited pictures we've taken in the past of the Heart Nebula. This is about 1 hour of exposure in hydrogen alpha. And we're about to show the colorized the colorized version. Thank you.
Do you guys mind staying for a few questions? I'm sure we have some.
Oh, yes,
from the board.
please.
Yeah?
Can I go
Okay.
first? Hey, when I visited the astronomy class at Swiftwater last year, and they were able to link in the large telescopes across the world and direct them to look at different stars and planets and stuff like that. In addition to your satellite or your telescopes you showed us, do y'all also work with some of the other big telescopes across the world, like the ones in Hawaii and Peru and so forth?
Unfortunately, we do not. I'm not sure if that's. Yeah, I'm not very sure.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I guess there's the telescopes that you did show us. Are you only able to participate and look at the stars, and do you have to wait till night to do that? Because
Yes.
I guess so. You do a lot of your work at night then.
Yes, it's always
Okay.
really cold. I'm not gonna lie. It's cold.
Because you said you have to stay up all night to do it. I'm just wondering how that impacts you the next day at school. And then last question, can each of you tell us what you want to be, like 5 years from now, what you want to pursue for college and what you want to do for a career?
Julie, you can start.
I want to pursue a degree in either psychology or neuroscience, so not really related to this.
It's okay. It's okay.
So I am currently, or going to be going into Washington State University to study mechanical engineering. And then I plan to work for Lockheed Martin on ICBMs.
Oh, okay, cool.
I've applied to be a cultural anthropologist.
Wow, okay. We didn't hear from her.
I'm only a sophomore, so I have not applied to college. But I am going to do Running Start, and that's as far as I've got. Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm so curious about the equipment. So you set the equipment up at school at night in the dark? Because I've seen your teacher out there with all the lights off. It's completely dark and it's freezing cold. But is it connected to a computer indoors, or are you all outside together looking through the telescope, or are you looking on your computer?
So usually what we do is we go out, and then, yes, before it gets dark, so about like right when we get there, we want to set up while it's still light out, and then we connect to the computer so that once it starts getting dark, we can start to look for the stars through our computer, because we don't actually look through the telescope. We use pictures from the telescope to look on the computer.
Got it. And in addition to getting these incredible photos, what are you studying? What are you learning about when you follow and track these nebulas and stars and solar observation?
We're just sort of learning how to use the telescope and how to use the technology.
Cool. And you guys want more students out there? You
Yes,
think that
more
they would
participation.
value from that? Excellent. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, you guys. So, a couple questions that I have. So, I wonder if you know that there is astrophotography contests throughout the world. Do you know that there are?
We didn't.
Yes.
I don't know about that.
So there are, and so I just kind of want to raise that to your attention. I was just thinking of your poster, right? So I'm wondering if you would invite the superintendent or any board member that would like to join you, especially it gets dark so early, right? And like tonight, isn't it a new moon tonight? I believe it is. So I would be really delighted to be invited, and I promise that I will wear a hat and do whatever, or don't touch anything. You can tell me. I think one of the things that I would like to highlight is the excitement for young people. When you look at the stars, you know, that is, I mean, as long as man has been on Earth, right? That has been the thing that we all share, is that being able to see the Milky Way, which we really can't see as well now, and all the things that you can learn. And it sounds like you're very well organized and that you are troubleshooting and problem solving. So that is a great job skill in whatever you do. So I just want to thank you for coming, and I'm very excited. And I hope that you expand, and we'll give your teacher as much support as he needs. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
The program you're talking about with the elementary kids, it's called SLU. We use it at Peninsula in our astronomy class. It gives us access to some telescopes in Chile and I believe, Canary Islands. Thank you. It gives us access to those, and we can just, like, you can plan missions to different nebulas and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. I don't know how to put this in. Just click it in. Okay.
All right, well done. Moving on to item 6, we have comments from the community. So I will call you one at a time to come up. I'm going to back that up. I missed number 5. We have our student representatives. So we have students from all schools here this evening. So I'll let Peninsula kick it off.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm Al Dawson. I'm the rep from Peninsula. And it's been a while since we've been here, so we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Our fall sports wrapped up, and you guys had a presentation on them, but they all did really great. A couple of them went to state, did good in state as well. We had our Veterans Day assembly, and we had teachers talk. Some of our teachers that were veterans talk about like what it meant to them. Our focus was kind of the oath of enlistment, and they kind of focused on that and talked about what that meant to them. We had our class of 2025 Krispy Kreme fundraiser. They had a huge success. They raised over $1,500, so it was really good of them. So they got a lot of money from that for their prom. And then seniors, we started ordering our cap and gowns. So we're getting ready for graduation. Kids are filling out their scholarship notebooks, which went on sale just a little bit ago and are due January 10th. And starting to fill up FAFSA as well. So everybody's kind of getting ready for the end of the year push and getting ready for graduation. So.
Hi, I'm Adam Massery. I'm also a student rep for Peninsula. And for November, we had Winterfest, which was also a huge success. We had over 170 vendors, and we had a ton of student volunteers. And after we all wrapped up, all the vendors said that all the volunteers were amazing and that their help was really appreciated. So that was really nice of them. I don't know if this is for sure, but I checked with one of my ASB senators, and they said that we raised over $37,000 during Winterfest, give or take. But yeah, we can't wait for next year, and it was a ton of fun. For November sports, our winter sports have all officially begun. We had girls bowling, girls and boys basketball, boys swim and dive, girls and boys wrestling, girls water polo, and then girls and boys unified soccer. So those are going on right now, just at the beginning of their seasons. We had a school play. The drama department put together the play, and it was Almost Maine, which was about a few different love stories. It was a really nice play. They did really good. And yeah, just an update on the phone policy at PHS. Students are doing well with the phone policy, and I haven't really heard that many complaints or violations with the student policy, and I just thought that we did a good job putting it together, so I just kind of want to talk about it. For new clubs, there's been a lot of new clubs at PHS, and it's really great that a lot of kids are getting to know each other. And big thing to note is that a lot of the new members in our clubs have been freshmen, so it's really good to see that a lot of them are coming out to try out some new clubs.
I want to kind of speak on the club thing. I'm in Knowledgeable, and I've seen there's like a ton of new freshmen joining Knowledgeable, and they're all like super duper smart. So it's looking good for Knowledgeable. So we have our winter coming up. We have our winter social, which is on Friday, December 15th. It's just an event. It's our second annual event of this, and we just kind of have everybody that wants to come can come hang out. There's karaoke, games, hot cocoa. There's cookies to decorate. Just like a fun time to hang out before winter break. So enjoy your last days of school before winter break. But on the 3 days before winter break, we have a spirit week, kind of mini spirit week. We have Monday as pajama day, Tuesday as like each class wears different colors. So freshmen are wearing green, sophomores are wearing red, juniors are wearing blue, seniors are wearing white. It's kind of like all Christmas themed or holiday themed, stuff like that. And then on Wednesday we have festive sweater day, so just wear your best sweater, I guess. But yeah, just getting ready to wrap up for winter break, getting tests done, stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry, we have one more thing. I didn't see this. It's a last minute addition. Oh, Adam, you want to say this?
Yeah. Sure. So I thought it would be good if we had a goal for next year. So, like a PHS New Year's resolution. And with the panorama surveys that we've been taking, I think we might have changed surveys, but it says that students at PHS had a low sense of belonging, and as a school, especially the leadership classes, we've discussed it, and we're having plans to foster a better sense of belonging at our school through the events we do and just kind of adding stuff to make everyone feel welcome. So I just want to talk about that.
I'm Logan Toms. I'm the Gig Harbor High School junior representative. So we've been having a lot of fun at Gig Harbor High School. Some general stuff is with Tide Fest, this similar to Winterfest. We had this this past week, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of supporters, and it was really fun running the booths. And also we had a lot of musicians helping and volunteering their time to bring some great music. On December 14th at 6 p.m. we have a freshman information night, which is where they can get together with their counselors and figure out what they need to do over these next 3.5 years or so to get ready for college and their future. Kind of a general school spirit thing we're doing is we're celebrating like the, I guess, theme of like Hygge, which comes from like Norwegian tradition or something, which instead of focusing on a specific holiday, kind of focuses on like the ideas of like comfort and just like enjoying yourself during the holiday season. Specific activity we're doing to represent this is kind of getting together with each of our individual Tides times, which is kind of similar to homeroom, and we're doing an art contest on the doors where we can compete in a few different categories such as like innovation, creativity, and just overall festiveness to figure out which one will win, and we'll be doing that over the next 2 weeks. Now, with the fall season ending, we have the winter season starting up, and there's already been a lot of success, specifically with the boys basketball. They've started their season 3-0 with wins over Kingston, Jefferson, and River Ridge, with their next game being against Central Kitsap. Girls basketball is also doing well, with going 2-1 currently, coming off wins against River Ridge and Yelm. Wrestling is having a lot of fun, with last Saturday them going to the Willie C. Stewart Invitational in Tacoma with a few wins from Jack Greer, who won first in the 106-pound category, Jonah Edmond, who got third in the 126-pound category, and Liam McDermott, who got second in the 138-pound category. Boys swim and dive on the 7th had a meet against Central Kitsap and ended up winning 131-31, which is kind of based on overall team score and placement in the meet, which was great to see their success. And their next meet will be against Timberline High School. And also girls bowling is starting up, and I'll have to do more research into their upcoming events and how they're doing. Looking at clubs, the Gig Harbor High School Drama Club is holding auditions on the 14th for their upcoming musical, The Sound of Music, which I'm very excited to see. And this past weekend, Speech and Debate had a lot of fun. We went to the Auburn Riverside Debate Tournament with some victories in different categories like programmed oral interp, where Autumn Coover got first, and she also got first in dramatic interp. Timothy Slaughter got second in Novice Lincoln Douglas Debate. Natalie Benke was a finalist impromptu, and Isabel Puccio and Madison Clement also got second in duo interpretation. And Debate is also holding our annual Speech Fest tournament this Thursday, which is where a few different schools get together on a Thursday night and have a lot of fun doing different speech events with some unique ones that we don't normally do. So it'll be a lot of fun, and that's what's going on at Gig Harbor High School.
Okay, hello. I'm Sarah, the school board rep for Henderson Bay High School. And for the first time, Henderson Bay was invited to have a booth at Tide Fest this year. And we are fully provided by our awesome Rotary Club members who support our school. And so the funds, which were based off of donations for our booth, we are fully funded, so we got all of what we made, and we made a total of $242. We had some awesome students and staff that kept our booth going both days of Tide Fest. And we have been invited next year to have a food booth, so that will be awesome. The start of the second quarter had a great start with a lot of new students, great new classes, and great staff as always. We have also started collecting clothes that are clean and gently used and new for our pop-up shop that will happen in January of 2024. And our Interact Club, today we hosted a luncheon for our school today where we showed what our Interact Club has been doing, how we've been involved in Interact Club, what we are going to be doing, and who we are by answering questions about us at Henderson. We were also raising money to buy gifts for teens in need, and we were able to raise a total of $400, which will be going shopping tomorrow to buy gifts for teens in need. We also recently opened our store for Henderson Bay merch. Right now we only have sweatshirts, but more to come, and they're designed by one of our really awesome students in our leadership class. Next week before break, we're also having a really great spirit week. Monday is Ugly Sweaters with a possible ugly sweater contest during lunch. Tuesday is holiday accessories. And Wednesday is holiday pajamas, and we'll be having an altered schedule so that half the day will be classes and the rest of the day will be movies and treats by our awesome staff and other activities. Our panorama surveys, our reports got back. We had a lot of good results, some surprising, some not, but that's to be expected. So that was cool. And then last month in November, Alec and we went to the WASDA conference with the board, and we got to interact with other students and school boards from around the state, and it was a really cool experience. And then I was able to meet with Principal Strader from Pioneer today, and we got Pioneer is doing their toy drive for Fish Food Bank. They are on Thursday K-1 music. They have music and arts night for kindergarten through first grade, and then their 4th and 5th graders and 2nd and 3rd graders are finishing up their Adventures unit. And the 2nd and 3rd graders are going to design challenges to innovate or revise tools. And the 4th and 5th graders are learning about electricity. And then the staff have this cool countdown and are having fun as a community.
Hi, my name is Amelia, and you're gonna learn what I've done at CGP. So we made a turkey lunch for our Friendsgiving with our university place transition program. We invited them and making lots of new friends. Thank you, Natalie Wimberly, for being our guest chef, sharing your time and talents with us. The baked CD was good, and thank you for sharing your family tradition. Unified Cheer Basketball will start on December 1st, and our first game is January 20th, 24. We don't know where it is yet, but we will let you know. 47 people turned out. Well, that's twice as more than we had last year. We're in the middle of a spirit week, Meals for Morton, we raised $2,000 to help students learn cooking skills and eventually live on their own. Mrs. Miller, who teaches at Peninsula High School, her class is learning how to make meals for themselves. Holiday shopping, we made a list, budgeted, and then went shopping for gifts. It was a fun day, although budgeting was hard. It can be hard. We are in the middle of a spirit week. Monday, Quincy Day. Tuesday, Crazy Sock Day. Wednesday, favorite book character. Thursday, ugly clothes. And Friday, PJ Day. On Thursday, we will be going to the university place to visit and do a cookie exchange. Some of the cookies we are going to give is like shortbread, strawberry, chocolate chip, and candy cane. Every day we work on job skills. Some of the places we work are Kiwi Fencing, that's a cleaning job. Kid Advantage, that's Kawana's baby clothes. Ace Harbor, backpacks for kids. ESC, Goodwill, Foursquare Church, Peninsula Lutheran Church, Key Peninsula Church, all cleaning jobs. Henderson Bay High School, Safe to Shore, Peninsula Paint, Large Dog Bones, Chamber of Commerce, Senior Scene, and Coffee News Delivery. It seems like we're busy, but we still want more jobs. We hope to get some more farm jobs. Soon I'll be attending a training course that will teach me about responsibilities in a preschool. I hope to work at a preschool. Coming up next week, we will be having another hands-on art lesson that we will teach to elementary students in January. Thank you for letting me tell you what we're doing at CDP. Anybody want to come and show us any recipes? Since Natalie Wimberly took her time and severe the challenge.
Nice job. Wow. Amelia, that was wonderful. Thank you. You guys are so busy. I know the gauntlet has been thrown. I will say that thank you for letting me come and cook with you. That was such a fun day. Really, we had a blast. So we made baked ziti and they made fresh baked bread. And I mean, the jobs that Amelia's talking about is truly happening. We played games together, and then they took me on a tour around the work that they do. So you guys are busy, busy, busy students. So thank you for that. And I'm curious, did Micah have the best socks for Crazy Sock Day? Do you know? Doesn't he work at a sock store?
Yeah, he wore some. He went to his job today, but did he wear crazy socks? I don't know. Okay. I wasn't paying attention.
I mean, he has access to all the socks, so I think he would be a really good contestant for that.
So President Wimberly, what about people that are not good cooks? Amelia, could I come and help clean?
Of course. We need somebody to help us with the dishes.
I'm your girl.
I'm going to just say it out loud.
Since me and another paraeducator did the dishes,
Yeah. Okay. So Superintendent Barr can do the dishes. Director Butler can bring her Instant Pot. Thank you. Good job. You guys, you know what? Can we give up for all of our students? You guys are so amazing. Thank you. Okay, we cannot top that, but we will move on to comments from the community now. When addressing the board, please state your name at the podium. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. I request that you hold yourself to the same standard of civility that we hold ourselves here to as well. And in the audience, please be respectful of all the speakers and comments. First up this evening, we have Chris Doherty.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Doherty, and like most parents, I'm concerned about the shortage of school transportation that may be affecting our school district. We understand there is a national shortage of bus drivers that began after the recession in 2008 and declined again after the COVID pandemic in 2020. Wages have also become stagnant and not in alignment with inflation. We have heard from PSD staff, parents, and students that some bus routes are already picking up extra students, which has led to more stops, disruptions, behavioral issues, or not enough seating available for students. We also have students arriving late to school, which means learning loss and falling out of their routine, which is vital for some of our special needs and sensory students. We understand that communication will go out at 5:30 a.m. the day of if there is a shortage. We implore the school district to provide communication at least the day prior so students, parents, and the community can work together to get our students to and from school. Students in Gig Harbor Incorporated have easier access to their schools via bikes or walking due to geographical proximity to their respective schools. Our students on the KP may live miles away from KPMS and PHS, with the only road to reach their respective school being Highway 302, which would not be safe for students to ride their bikes or walk. We need to be mindful of our students on the KP as there are fewer schools servicing a much wider geographical area. Factor in the economic disparity between families in Gig Harbor Incorporated and those on the KP, and it's easy to see that the students on the KP are at a greater disadvantage. Our community is looking for solutions, short, medium, and long-term. Short-term solution is carpooling. Medium-term solution is higher wages for our current bus drivers and help employee retention. Long-term solution is to search for and apply for federal or state funding and lobbying to change license requirements, such as the Get Our Kids to School Act, which is a federal legislation that would forego the repair-oriented under-the-hood vehicle testing requirement of the CDL, which is unnecessary for school bus drivers. We as a community want to be part of the long-term solution and ask the district to be transparent in their actionable steps that they're taking to ensure school transportation is not affected. Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Ann Junod.
Hi, folks. I understand that the district is investigating opportunities to lessen the burden of potential school bus disruption on families, and I thank the board in advance for transparency and quick action in the coming weeks and in the coming months to develop both short-term solutions to address immediate needs, as well as mid and long-term solutions to ensure that disruption issues are addressed and mitigated in the future. I also understand that part of the current plan is to rotate route closures across the district. Please consider, though, that route disruptions, even if evenly distributed, will not affect families and communities evenly. Many families in the district will be far more burdened by disruption than others, and in a fairly systematic way, raising issues of equity in family burden and in family expense. For example, families with just one vehicle or with no vehicle at all, families with lower incomes, families with inflexible and shift work schedules, and rural families that live further away from school will be disproportionately affected by potential disruptions. And these families also disproportionately live on the Key Peninsula. Disruptions will be harder for Key Peninsula families overall, and even more so because of the fact that there is no longer public transportation of any kind on the Key compared to the public transportation options that are still available in Gig Harbor. So in the coming weeks and in the coming months, Parents need transparency and frequent communication in your planning. They also need a longer planning runway than 5:30 a.m. the morning of to be notified if a route will be closed, especially for more rural families on the Key. That's just an unrealistic timeline to take action and drive those longer distances. And finally, a plan that doesn't disproportionately burden students and families who are already disproportionately burdened. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to our consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Lori. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. The consent agenda has been approved. Item 8 in our reports this evening, we'll start with 8.1, our 2022-2023 year-end financial report. So our CFO, Ashley Murphy, is here. If you want to come on up to the podium.
Okay, so please excuse me ahead of time. I'm nursing a cough, and so I'm hoping that I don't start hacking, but if I do, I apologize. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this presentation is in regards to our year-end financials. So we prepared the financial statements. Got it? Okay, so financial statements have been prepared, submitted to the state, and accepted. So at this point, we discuss basically where we landed at the end of the fiscal year, so August 31st of 2023. We're going to start with the general fund. So this is where all of our day-to-day operations runs through. It takes pieces of everything from transportation, facility, grounds, maintenance, custodial, our teachers, paraeducators, all of that, they're all funded through our general fund. Our main revenue driver, the vast majority of our revenue is driven through enrollment. And so our enrollment is what drives our funding for the most part for the district. So our budget assumptions versus our year-end actuals for enrollment, that AA FTE is our annual average FTE. So we had budgeted to be at 8,855 students. When we were trying to determine where to budget, and again, this is for 22-23, but when we were trying to determine where to budget for student enrollment, the year prior to 22-23, this district had seen a significant decline in overall enrollment. And so we took a very conservative approach and allotted a very, very slim increase of enrollment for 22-23. Where we actually came in, when you take the average of over the entire course of the school year from September through June, is we came in at 8,858. So 3 full-time equivalent, so 3 technically students above budgeted projections. So it's good in the sense that we made budget. It's not awesome in the sense that we didn't get a bunch of extra money. So, but being able to actually make our budget though is positive. So that's where we ended for 22-23 as far as actual enrollment goes. Then we start delving into the actual specifics of the money. So our local taxes, so our levy dollars, we had budgeted to collect about $25.75 million. It ended up coming in at about just over $26 million. A lot of individuals will ask, especially when it comes down to local levy, how could you collect more than you budgeted with local levy, since our local levy is tied to the number of students? Well, in a perfect world, property taxes are paid October and April exactly every single year. In some situations, you know, families may fall behind, or there's other situations that occur that cause late property tax payments. Late property tax payments don't disappear or go away, they're just collected at a later date. So it is possible to see an overall increase in collection over what you budgeted as we collect or as the county collects on past due property taxes from the community. So in that situation, we have a positive variance. So we collected $586,000 more than what we had anticipated. Our local non-support, this is an area that was heavily hit during COVID. And now you can see that it's rebounding. And so when you're budgeting for local non-support, so this is tuition, fines, fees, goods, services sold, so any money taken in through the food service program, it all gets recorded here. So we had budgeted to be just under 2.5 million. We ended up being just under 4 million. A good chunk of that was meal sales because we technically, as of right now, don't have a robust fee program here within Peninsula School District. And so what we're seeing there is money paid for breakfast and lunch each day. The state line item, this is where we tend to see the vast majority of our revenue, because again, this is what is driving our enrollment factor. So what we're seeing there is that we saw an increase. Now, you saw that we only saw 3 additional kids than what we had anticipated. So why are we seeing a $2.3 million increase here? Well, the state, through the legislative session, did enact a few different programs that did help us financially that were unexpected and unanticipated. One of them being transportation safety net funding. I did a presentation on this not too long ago. So although we could, well, technically we earned and should have received close to $1 million, we did not, but we did receive just over $300,000 of unanticipated revenue on that side. So that's part of it. And then in addition to that, our district administrators, our principals, central admin really hit state competitive grants hard this last year and really sought out every extra dollar that we could possibly garner in order to offset our financial deficit that we knew we were going to be facing. And by doing so, we were able to garner and bring in more state revenue last year. Again, these are competitive dollars, so we can't necessarily rely on it from year to year. But any year that we can get it, we're going for it at this point. Federal revenues decreased last year. Federal revenues tend to as far as competitive revenues, they tend to really align to your demographic, your district demographic as far as the student population, as well as the poverty percentage. This district isn't super diverse and it's not super high poverty, therefore we don't technically end up qualifying for a lot of the federal competitive grants. So although we want to plan to bring in more, unfortunately we fell short by about $1 million on this side, not for lack of trying, but because technically the feds didn't want to give us the money. On the other revenue side, so a lot of times this is where you'll see budgeted contingency. And by a budgeted contingency amount, we're talking dollars that we set aside that we technically don't know if we're going to earn or receive, but we hope we are. So you set it aside in the budget so that you have capacity to spend against it, because if you do not do that, you have to go back to the board for approval and a budget expansion in order to spend the money. Now, you can see that with a $30,000 other budget, we didn't plan for a lot of contingency because when we were trying to balance this budget, we were technically in the hole at that time, so you can't plan for a bunch of money that we know that we don't have. So we were very, very conservative on that side and planned for less. And thankfully, through efforts like Dawnette's efforts to ensure that we're billing other districts for Kinney-Vento transportation, we were able to bring in more money to the district than anticipated. On all of that offset that deficit that we were looking at, and you're going to see sort of how this plays into it here soon. So this goes in and speaks into more detail. What did I do, Tanya? Thank you. So the local non-support, that's the return of the paid lunches and breakfast, facility use fees, And then E-rate reimbursements are all going through that. We had our transportation safety net and an increase in state grant participation. These are what were considered ESSER-funded competitive grant packages, but not the ESSER that you hear about. These were other dollars set aside for the state to dole out to districts on a competitive basis. So we did garner some of that revenue through competitive grant applications. The decrease in meal participation will decrease your federal revenues because you receive a reimbursement through the feds on these meals. Our other revenues also, one of the key pieces in this, the board meeting before last, you guys passed a policy in regards to GASB 87. You just didn't realize it was in regards to GASB 87, so this is an accounting requirement. It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo that basically says that this district is required to record our leases now in our financial statements, the value of the lease. Prior to the passage of GASB 87, school districts in all of Washington state were not required to record the value of leases in their financial statements because we are considered modified accrual districts. Now, because of the passage of this GASB, we have to record those leases, and we have about just under $400,000 associated with these leases that then hit the financial statements. Okay, so now we're looking at our actual variances broken down by what we call our object series. So we have certificated salaries, classified salaries, employee benefits, supply materials, otherwise known as and our purchase services, travel, and capital outlay. For school districts, you're always going to see the objects of our expenses broken down into these categories. Now, when I first started here, we put the district on a spending and hiring freeze. That spending and hiring freeze is what you're seeing up there in red. Okay, so because we did not fill the open positions at the time because we knew we were going to be upside down, we were able to save ourselves just over $2.5 million over the course of 1 year by finding other ways to get the job done without filling the positions. And then supplies and materials, we did see an increase in that and in purchase services. Two reasons. An increase in supplies and materials was because $7 million would have never gotten us through the year to begin with, but in order to balance the budget, we had to cut from somewhere, and we could not cut from staff because of RCW and WAC requirements because we were past the May 15th deadline. So as we were able to garner more revenue, we would work with the departments and say, okay, well, now you have an extra $50,000. Now you can do this project. We really focused last year on really minding the budget. If you have the dollars, you can spend it. If you don't have the dollars, what is the need? Is it safety? Is it security? And is it specific to a student need? And those were our approval requirements. Purchase services. This is an area that you tend to see a lot of flexibility because a lot of the times, unfortunately, and it ends up being tied to special education staffing, surprisingly enough. If we can't hire the special education staff, we have to contract with outside entities, and you end up paying a premium to get those staff into the district to fill these roles. And there will be more information to come in regards to what we're trying to do to improve that. But in these type of situations, that's why you're seeing that $2 million variance there. Travel, we were right on. Capital outlay, this is about investing, obviously, in the buildings, ensuring that we're not going into deferred maintenance, which then is just more costly later down the road. On which one?
Just throwing off a little bit about, you got your variance for your, when you came in over budget, like you budgeted for 36 million in expenses, and you came in at 34. To me, that's a savings of 2 million. If you came in, put it in parents red, what I thought there would be black, if that was a savings in budget.
Yeah, I can see what you're talking about there. And the way that we're looking at variance is not like it's technically where our cost savings is coming from. And since those areas technically are cost savings from budget, we do a red variance. For us on the accounting side, it means positive, but yes, if you're looking at it, it could look negative. Are you talking about how it foots? How it foots or ties across? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Sounds good. Okay, so now what we're looking at here is our the reasons for our expenditure variances, and so that's sort of what I was talking about here, the classified staffing costs. You were seeing a fairly significant amount there. We really started looking at our classified positions and the need to fill the position, or how we could get the work completed without backfilling a position in order to cover the budget deficit that we were seeing at that time. Okay, so this slide, basically what we're looking at is ultimately we have a board goal range of 4 to 6% for our ending fund balance, our unassigned percent of expenditures. And we have a minimum goal of 4, but 4% doesn't get you through a short month as far as actual cash flow goes, right? So we try to balance it to know that we're going to have enough money to get the year started and not basically be borrowing from ourselves. So in all reality, $8.8 million is pretty much the minimum that we could possibly have in the account in order to not have cash flow issues at any given time. And so the goal over the year, as we sought out these additional revenues and brought them in, wasn't, hey, we brought in more money, go out and spend it. It was we bring in more money, we look at what our needs are, we spend on what the actual need is, but if it's a want, can it be tabled? How do we plan for it in the future to ensure that we have enough capacity? So we had budgeted for our revenues to be about 148 million. It ended up being 152 million. Our expenditures out, that's technically what your budget is actually based upon. We had budgeted to be at about 153 million. We came in just over that at 154 million, but you can see that our dollars out, our variance for our dollars out were less than the variance for our revenues in. And that's key because we needed to be able to add some money back in so that we didn't run into issues this year. So you're looking at our net decrease in all of those areas. So how many expenditures we had over revenues, and then what our beginning fund balance was at that time versus what our ending fund balance is. So specifically here, our ending fund balance for 22-23 is $11.8 million. We had budgeted to be at $8.8 million. And so we did increase our fund balance by 1.2%. And that $11.8 million is what's getting us through the fall to ensure that we're not going to have any cash flow issues, and we're able to once again invest in the programs and the kids that we have in our buildings. So now we start going into our other funds, because the general fund is only one of our 5. So capital projects fund, the capital projects fund, it's used for the acquisition and construction of major capital facilities. That's what it was used for last year. You're going to see a turn with this, because not only is it going to be used for that, but our safety, security, and technology levy that our community approved, also those levy dollars that get collected, they do not go into the general fund. They go into the capital projects fund, and they can only be utilized on specific items that align with those purposes. So you can't go out and hire staff with it, give raises, anything like that. So it's specific to those projects. So although you're seeing this for actual acquisition of property or major capital projects for now, when you see future presentations, you're going to see that shift a bit. So our capital projects fund, they had budgeted for revenues to be at about $19.8 million. Again, this comes in through state match or the actual sale of bonds. Expenditures out were budgeted to be at about $53 million. It's very, very, very common to always budget to fully expend your capital projects fund, especially if that's bond revenue and not something like a safety, security, and technology levy. Because you holding the money in the account means that you're not getting the projects done. So we always budget to say, hey, we're going to expend as much of this each year as possible. That gives us the capacity to finish the projects. So you can see that it was budgeted to spend down to $1 million. Now, lofty goals, we didn't get there, but we got a lot closer. We ended with $16.7 million in that fund, and we're still finishing up a few of the projects. Debt service fund, so this is how we go through repaying the money that we received for our capital projects. This just shows you the trend on what we're paying as far as dollars each year, both principal and interest. You do see that step down from 2021 to 22-23 as far as what was actually levied from the community in order to pay our principal and interest payments. Okay, so we had budgeted to bring in $13.1 million and spend $13 million. This is a fund that you don't tend to keep a huge balance in because the purpose is truly just to pay your debt. And we came in right where we anticipated to be. The variance that you're seeing right there is actually interest collected on the money within the account because we ended up holding more money in the account than anticipated because the projects were not completed. ASB, so this is the kids' money. So this is what they're in charge of. I just take the plans that they give me, I compile them into a massive document, get it into the budget, but this is where they've said that they're wanting to spend the money. So our high schools, middle schools, and 2 of our elementary schools have active ASBs. And this is what we were looking at this last year. So our revenue budget was, we had anticipated to be at about $1.6 million based upon the plans that the students drew up, and have expenditures at about $1.8 million. So they were planning on sort of dipping into their reserves a bit. They ended up bringing in $1.3 million. And only spending just over $1 million. So they actually added to their fund balance this last year versus bringing that balance down. Yes. Mm-hmm. Transportation vehicle fund. So this fund is specific just to yellow buses. So not our transportation operation, not how we pay for our drivers, anything like that. But it's primarily funded through state depreciation schedules. And this is the fund that we use to replace our fleet and ensure that we have a fleet that's still on that depreciation schedule, because that's how we receive the revenues into this fund. So what we were looking at this last year, the pandemic and after effects are hampering our abilities a little bit with this fund. It's becoming a little bit more difficult to receive buses within the same year that you ordered them. Lead time is what, 18, 20 months sometimes? More than that. Yeah. It ended up being over 2 years on the last purchase cycle. So you have to really foresee into the future where you want to be, put these orders in, because you're competing with schools across the state and nation in order to get the buses in. And so one of the things that was extremely creative that Donette had done this year is we've been waiting for these buses that we had purchased, and they weren't coming. But we have the money. We need to get more buses that are going to be on the depreciation schedule. So with her contacts that she has with the bus manufacturers, she received a tip that they had 2 buses that had been turned away from a district that had ordered them for their own personal reasons. but it met the specifications that we wanted. And so she went, talked to them, negotiated a lower rate because, hey, they're sitting on your property, not making you any money, so let us buy them from you. And we were able to get those in. So we tend to always budget to at least spend some of the money because, again, it's about keeping those buses on the replacement cycle. But whether or not we actually get the buses within the fiscal year is totally up in the air at any given point. We did get 2 last year that are actually booked against this dollar value. So right now we have about just under $1.5 million sitting in this fund as of August 31st. Okay, so with all of that being said, ultimately we had a difficult start due to some budgetary constraints. We had our hiring and spending freeze. We did seek out and receive nearly $1 million in new competitive grant revenue, both state and federal. And we added $3 million to budgeted fund balance through various cost-saving measures, both the hiring, spending freeze, and the new grant revenues, and honestly, just really, really meticulously watching our spending. But ultimately, all of that work throughout all of the year and the stressors associated with that, it ended up working because we were able to start the year in a much more positive place than we thought we would be able to a year ago. And that allows us to be able to plan for our future years, knowing that we have more money in the bank to be able to invest into our programs and our kids. Okay, any questions?
Just a quick question about transportation. If you're behind on your buses, and whenever you negotiate the purchase sale of a new bus and you don't get it for a year due to inflation and everything, do you get to keep the same purchase price even if you don't receive the bus for a year?
Yes, generally, whichever, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Whichever purchase price in which you negotiated and signed the contract at is the purchase price in which you get. The one caveat to that was during COVID when all bus manufacturers increased the prices of buses after the signed contract.
Across the board, though.
Across the board, and that was about $8,000 to $10,000 per month.
So you're not seeing that anymore. That's where I was going with that. So a year from now, if they wanted to raise the price, they couldn't come back and say, we want more money.
So we have a state bid program, so all of our buses are purchased on the state bid. So each bus manufacturer has to give OSPI a bid on what their bus costs each year, and that's where we purchase them from. So we actually don't have to go out to bid to the manufacturers. We purchase off the
Just through the state contract?
Yeah, we piggyback. We piggyback off the state contract for them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I appreciate very much that you highlighting the competitive grant revenues. I think I just want to give a shout out to staff for pursuing all of those because that's in addition to all of the other work. It's not like we have a grant writer sitting around doing this work. It is an additional duty for all of our staff. So that's really, really impressive. So kudos to
they've done
to
great.
The staff for doing that.
Principals were submitting grants and were successful in obtaining quite a lot of grant revenue. District office staff. I mean, it really was a team effort.
Yeah, and it so beautifully shows support for the strategic plan in areas of innovation and things like that. So pretty impressive work. Thank you.
Can I just ask you to, I know we saw the applications come out for federal impact aid. Can you kind of plug that and talk about why it's so important that everybody fill that form out?
I would love to. I would love to. Okay, so here we are in a wonderful position in which we have military bases all around us in all reality. So federal impact aid is considered it's a federal in lieu of revenue. So basically what the federal government does is say, hey, for any military connected or federally connected children, either they live on a reservation that happens to be within your district, or their parents are active duty military, or they work for the federal government, they're considered federally connected. They allow you to go through this process of working with the federal government to put together a survey, which is what everyone has seen. That has to be vetted by the federal government, and it has specific questions that are required to be asked by the federal government in order for us to qualify. So we put this out to families. The goal is to hit 10% of federally connected children. If you are a district that has 10% federally connected children, then it opens up a completely new pot of money and a completely new option for competitive grants. Okay, so you can bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars. What's really nice about this money, because it's considered an in lieu of revenue, is that they don't earmark it. We don't have to spend it on, this one specific program over here, and if you don't spend it, we're going to take it back. They give it to us, and we can spend it on any program or operations of the district. Now, we have worked together as a team to really proactively plan, if we can get to the 10% threshold, where we're going to utilize these dollars. It can help offset counselors. It can help provide additional supports for military connected families. It can provide additional, elective courses. There's so many different things that we can do with it, but it is vitally important that we get the surveys back. Even if you're not federally connected, it is important that you complete the survey, because the federal government is looking at the completion rate of this application within the district as one of their requirements of approving us. So there's a series of different questions to determine how you're federally connected. It's important that you complete it and send it in, because until we can hit that 10% threshold, we don't actually get access to anything. So last year we were just shy of the 10% threshold, so unfortunately we didn't end up getting any federal impact aid. One thing to note is federal impact aid is paid a year in the rear. Okay, so we're doing all of this work right now to push it out. That doesn't mean that we would receive the money this year. We would receive the money next year, technically for this year though. And it opens up a completely different avenue for us when it comes to other financial opportunities within this district. And we know we have more than 10% federally connected kids in this district. We know, we can see it. We have the data, but we can't submit it on behalf of families. We need the families to complete the application and send it in.
When you communicate with the families about it, how long does it take a family on average to complete?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So are you communicating, it only takes 2 minutes to do the form?
I don't think.
Is it online?
It is. It's online.
Less than 5 minutes to complete online.
Yeah.
So,
totally less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, it seemed like we get that how easy it is. I'm just wondering, are we communicating that out, that it's really quick?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and one of the other things that I do want to put in for the federal impact aid is federal impact aid. You get funded in 2 different avenues. You get federal impact aid just for your general education, and you also get special education federal impact aid that is tied to special education students that are federally connected. And so that's a completely different pot of money that we will get access to, which for a district that is currently pulling from levy or from our state funding to be able to offset the cost of our special education program by in excess of millions of dollars, this will help bring that down to allow us to be able to utilize that funding on other areas while still providing the same level of service to our students.
It's a live-on, work-on program, right? So
absolutely.
You don't have to be in the military if you work at the
correct.
Or work on JBLM or any federally connected property. Just work there.
Exactly.
Not being active duty.
Yep.
That's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, yeah, and if they live on native land.
Right.
So, or in all reality, if they live in federally subsidized housing, that's also a qualifier. And so there's all these different qualifiers, but the survey it walks you through, do you live on this? Yes or no? Are you active duty military? Yes or no? Do you have a, federally connected job? Yes or no? So it's fairly intuitive as far as you answer the questions. It doesn't take long, but it is important. This was one of the items when I came here that I was surprised that we were not getting, and I pulled the data and I was like, we qualified. There's no way that we don't qualify. it's just a new thing for this community to be seeing and being asked to do, whereas our surrounding districts are receiving it. And they're receiving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in federal impact aid. And that's what helps them bolster financial deficits. When the state funding isn't coming in where it needs to be, they know they're gonna be able to pull from their federal funding.
Maybe we could put that in the compass or something, to put a little notice in the compass about that. Regarding enrollment, real quick, I know that our funding is based on enrollment, but since we're gonna be talking soon about excused and unexcused absences, at what point would unexcused absences cause a student to fall off as an FTE for an enrollment? I just don't wanna forget to ask that. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, so a student who's been absent for 20 consecutive days, after, attempts to contact them and see if they're, just sick or on vacation, whatever it happens to be, ends up falling off our enrollment reports. We have to technically unactivate them and not count them in our counts. There's also what's called count day in the month of September. It's within the first 5 days of the start of school. But then from October all the way through June, it's the first school day of the month is your count day. So if your student is absent on the count day, then we're not getting the money for them for that month.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I'd like to add one more thing. We have applied for the Purple Star designation that went in last week. So we will have a robust program, and the application, I believe, doesn't close until February. So our parents should know that that survey is out there, but also our families that are military connected, if they can communicate with their friends, that we're going for the Purple Star.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and what's really nice about this is that if we're successful in getting that Purple Star, then we get deemed as a military-friendly school district. And so children who, let's say, have they have a condition that needs a specific climate, or they need to be close to a specific hospital or whatever, the military will take that family and put them in our area because we are a military-friendly school, and they know that we'll be able to provide appropriate supports. Then that is another federally connected child that then qualifies through impact aid, and so it bolsters the revenue on that side as well, while in all reality just being the right thing to do.
Please simply be able to post on the front page of our website.
We have to have a page, yeah.
Yeah, we get it. Huh?
Well, it's part of a requirement that we have a link on our website to it.
we actually do.
Perfect.
And also with that would come federally funded counseling services. So
Correct.
if we meet a certain threshold, so that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. All right, our next presentation this evening is item 8.2. This is our district wellness update. We have our lead counselor, Becky Maffei, who's going to start things off. And looks like Carol Rivera is joining.
Well, thank you for having us today. Both Becky and I are part of the NEA grant that has come to our district, or part of the core team, along with Mary Casely, Taylor Marshall, who support our early career educators, and then Hannah Hollett, who is our committee chair and supporting our wellness reps in our schools. So one of the things we just wanted to talk about first, and just make sure that people understood the purpose and premise of the grant itself, was partnerships that prioritize wellness are the key to supporting educator retention, our early career educators, and student success. So those components are really important in the work that we are doing. Last week, or last school board, I mentioned that we were having our visit from our site visit from NEA over the past couple weeks, or 2 days, last week. It was just last week.
It was just last week.
So we have some information from that, but really just to see all of the different things that we are doing. when we come up and talk about things, it really is a snapshot. I'm not even sure our membership understand the depth of the work that we have been doing since September of 2021 in order to get to a place where we are now and be able to talk to you about it. So let's see what we have to say. Okay, the first thing that we wanted to talk about is we applied for the grant, and then the district also was going through the process of the strategic plan. So with that strategic plan, we wanted to just focus on the fact that it does support your goal 4 about the learning environment for our students, so that we have an inclusive community, a culture where everyone is safe, valued, respected, and also finds a sense of belonging. And so a lot of the work and conversations we have here are around that, and the conversations we're having in our school with our SIP plans that were presented all tie in. And so I guess, you know, Becky, you work a lot with the counselors and the school culture, and so that definitely ties into our social emotional climate. So what we have here is the brain science. You want to talk about brain science?
What I actually would love to highlight at this is just that part of what has been so innovative and powerful about this work is the collaboration between educators, the employees of the district, and our leadership of the district. And so that connection and that awareness of prioritizing that staff wellness and student wellness are really connected and aligned, and that they're not two separate things, but that they really are both priorities because they support each other. And so I think that's really highlighted in the objective in the strategic plan, and the work that has been collaboratively led, I would say, by Superintendent Barr and our PEA president, Carol Rivera, has really shown that leadership in prioritizing that connection, and that I think is really powerful. So.
All right, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about specifically is what is the NEA Great Public Schools Grant. And so what we wanted just to emphasize is that the National Education Association really takes our professionalism very seriously, and it really does take consideration and wants to transform our schools into places that students can learn. And so these are our membership, our dues dollars that come to the district for us to use. And so just like the board has a fiscal responsibility for our tax dollars, we really are trying to be very mindful of how we use these in a way that supports educators and our students. So one of the other things that, you know, through our site visit, that kind of union led in those pieces, this is a competitive grant, just like we're talking about. We were one of 13 grants that were approved back in 2022, I think we found out. So that piece of it is that they want us to be successful, but also in our visit, we realized that we are actually one of the only grants nationally that is focusing on educator well-being to also support student success. And so I'm very excited about the possibilities of that, especially as we talk about some of the things later. So we'll go ahead and talk about this. Okay. Do you want to talk about how this was formed? That's an easy one. We didn't practice this, so we just put stuff together.
Who's going to talk about what?
Yeah.
So through the funding with the NEA grant, PEA has really been working over the last couple of years to pull together educators, PEA members from across the district with wellness representatives in each building that have been meeting regularly and creating plans and supports for their staff within their building, and also bringing feedback that we can use at the district level to help us really understand how can the district best support our educators. It's really about having that staff input in how we do things. That's really important. And that has taken a variety of
turns.
It has, yes. But with the general mission of empowering educators by developing and providing strategies that build that culture of well-being.
Thank you, Becky. All right, so there's a lot of words on there. So what we've been spending a lot of time doing is focusing on the infrastructure, right? Having a lot of things where you go ahead and you just come up with ideas and you don't really have that foundational piece really doesn't lead to a successful long-term growth and implementation of any project. So again, we said that, you know, those partnerships are key to that. And so with our work, one of the things that has really been foundational is the fact that we have some negotiated agreements that really support and put in some things in place that will allow us to grow the opportunity and the possibilities associated with the grant. So reframing the building leadership team, moving that towards one team, really increasing the stakeholder participation. Those individuals on that team are selected by their peers to represent them on that team. And I think also we were very intentional about adding an equity, diversity, inclusion rep on those building leads, including a MTSS or multiple tier of student support lead, and then also our wellness rep. So all of those will be that conduit of information from the building out to the district, from the district back, and so the district can know who they need to contact to have firsthand experience of practitioners in the building for all of those things. But it was also with some foresight. Wellness, really that culture of belonging, the issues of equity that we hear about here also, making sure that all students in the building, all staff in the building have opportunity, that the efforts that we're putting into our academics and our behavioral tiers of support are really part of kind of that vision that work together to help us do the work that we want to do. Shared commitments. Creston and I have written two shared commitment letters about the district-wide and our partnership in supporting well-being for staff. So each of those revises a little bit with maybe the things that we've accomplished and the things we hope to move forward to. One of the things that has been really critical that is actually making time and space. So we have had an agreement where we have our all-building collaborations on Wednesdays. It's probably about 7 or 8 of those annually, and so it's at that time that we have about 10 to 15 minutes where our building reps can go ahead and have conversations about well-being. And so those are still new to our staff. Just like in your classroom, you have teachers who have different approaches and ways to do that, but I think that normalizing the conversation around staff well-being and connecting it to our student well-being is really important because as a profession, educators say yes a lot, we overcommit, we do a lot, and we work beyond what everyone sees, right? And so that can be very taxing. You don't want to let anybody down, and you certainly want to be there for your students. There's a few other things in there. One of the things all of you might notice is there is every Wednesday comes out Wellness Wednesdays. That is a collaborative effort with PEA and our communications team to go ahead and start talking about the themes we have for the month, ways that staff can access resources, shot clinics, some of the supports the district is putting in place with employee assistance and different things. And so we hope to grow that as an information that goes out to all staff, not just classroom teachers or educators. And then, as you are aware of, the legislative requirements. Really, this is an opportunity for us to take the lead in Washington State and also across our nation in having those conversations. Last school board meeting, you did go ahead and pass the, adopt the policy. And so as I was preparing for tonight, on the OSPI website, there was a survey that went out to schools, districts across the state asking about that bill and asking about their implementation. And most of the responses, 70% of those respondents said that they had, they were aware of this, but they haven't done anything more than just passing policy. So that's a standard. The second piece of that, we talk a lot about unfunded mandates. So all of these things around staff well-being and the expectations that are in that policy, and as we build out the procedures, those don't come with dollars from the state, right? The district has a responsibility to pay our health care. There's some things we'll talk about that come with that. So sustainability and implementation are hindered without the funds to be able to do that. So the gift of the grant, where when we applied, has allowed us to bring in and put things in place that a lot of other districts don't have that opportunity. And so we've been asked from our NEA visitor, Dr. Johnson, to consider presenting a lot of the work that we have done here in our state and maybe nation. So.
And again, I think that's that power of of the collaboration there that's really makes it innovative and something that people will want to emulate, I think. So one of the things that that we have definitely learned from staff as we are dealing with what we all know to be a nationwide mental health crisis with our youth is that staff are asking for more tools and they want more professional development on how better to support student wellness. So again, this is really about that connection between staff wellness and student wellness and how those two things are not distinct but really connected and can't be separated. We've done several things already and are planning some future activities, bringing elementary mindfulness training to teachers and other staff members from across the district that will then be able to share that with their colleagues back in their buildings.
What I wanted to point out too is that this also has kind of revealed people to have a different interest and passion around well-being. So those individuals that are wellness representatives are serving on the building leadership team, but we've identified 22 other building leaders now. Every building has been trained by Christy Fisher, who is a parent in our community. She has been working in our schools in a variety of settings from kindergarten to 12th grade, really supporting mindfulness, concentration as a way to regulate, as a way to help students become in tune with their bodies and their minds. And that has benefits the work, and Kristen was part of the conversation, the debrief with some of the teachers. We brought them back again last week and talking about implementation. As they were talking about it, they all got their kits that we were able to give them with, and so they had kind of the tools and different things that they can utilize either in their building to work with their one class or to work with their colleagues to think about it. And those individuals were not just classroom teachers. We had occupational therapists, we had counselors, we had resource teachers, we had our self-contained classroom. So all of the things that they are learning and using really crosses all of the areas in our school and our services that we do. So we're excited about the opportunity. Those leaders will have some additional training opportunities for more staff, and then our kind of hope is really to start ingraining these not as standalone items, but really as something that we can take 2 to 3 minutes. The kids come in from recess, they're really, anxious, not anxious, they're excited. They really need to bring their energy down through movement or through just, regulating and all of those things. And so where it's also a lot of fun. So that is that one. We have a companion, so this is our elementary pieces, and this is where we are going with our secondary. And so in 2019, we had a training for all of our staff from Generation Wellness, and it really was around these same principles, really from grounded in kind of the brain and the reaction. And so as you know, you've been watching the panoramic data, and so as students get older, their culture or their sense of belonging changes a little bit, and that also is because their brain is changing, right? So students who are very young really have just that reactionary. We need to teach them how to respond and self-regulate. And then as you're going through adolescence and all of those different changes into high school, as you're getting prepared to, take control as an adult of your future, those skills just need to shift. They need to change, right? And so when we support our staff and our students being able to just take a moment, one of the things that we as secondary educators experience, and I often think about, and we've asked our BLT, is the quality of the student day and as they go through. And I think our students in the room can talk about in middle school, right, when you go from one teacher to multiple ones and you have to run through the day and have 6 or 7 transitions, and you run in and something just didn't go well in that class, how are you ready to learn? Right? So all of these things are helping and will help both our staff regulate and respond appropriately, and also support students as they're able to make some of those changes. So We sent 12 educators just on Saturday to the training in Olympia. So they also are local trainers. She's grounded in Olympia. Both Christy and Lindsay are educators, so they have that background, and they counselor, bring that to it. And so we are going to continue to work on it. What we've done through that also is we're providing the site licenses purchased for both all the middle schools and high schools at this point. Due to budget cuts and other things, some of our schools were still using this, and then that resource was stopped last year. So we wanted to bring that back for our educators who are already integrating these things with their students. And so that's available, and then we'll kind of have those future opportunities. One of the things I think we started our site visit with NEA in the classroom. So we were at Peninsula High School in a 9th grade English class and Julie Brewery's class. We went over to Gig Harbor to the Teacher Academy, which is a class that is both Gig Harbor and Peninsula students, and kind of at the end. And it was quite just to see how they are incorporating the different components in their lessons. And that is our hope, that across content areas, our staff and students can find ways to apply these. These things. So we are doing a lot of things, piloting things, trying things, giving people opportunities to engage with our colleagues. So we have several buildings who are working through educator wellness in the 180 days of self-care for busy educators. I know that our new educators, our new administrators also have been working through that as part of kind of their onboarding and their welcoming to Peninsula. And so those resources are really good opportunities for us to think about what we give here and to show up able to do the job that requires so much of us, but also enjoy and our outside life and maybe set those professional boundaries. The 40-hour work week?
I was just going to say, and to do it in a way that's sustainable and that prevents burnout and that keeps us all healthy and moving forward positively.
Okay, so 40-hour work week, it's not you shut the door and leave the school, you know, on when it starts and ends. Those are really, we have actually purchased that for, we have some teachers piloting the teacher one. We have our instructional coaches running through the instructional coaching piece. And we had probably about 15 administrators who we provided that for, so that we can see and look at really ways to same time when we are working, how do we show up and conduct that business and maximize the time that we have. And the other piece of it is really how to create kind of more of a self-running classroom. In our framework of Danielson, the difference between distinguished and proficient is that the students are really in charge of their learning and they're running that. And so the 40-hour work week has a lot of components that really makes the classroom setting, it's really thinking about the environment we set and the things we do to really support learning and allow people to access learning.
Carol gets excited. She's talking about these things. There's a lot to share. So just thinking about that sustainability piece, and again, that connection between the work that PEA through the NEA grant has done and that the district will be able to continue moving forward in a sustainable way. We have, along with the board policy 5515, which Carol mentioned, that thank you for adopting at your last meeting, created a district wellness committee that we've met a couple of times already, and so with your support, we're moving forward with the goals of that and wanting to ensure that it includes representation from all different areas of our district, including not just teachers, but everyone across the employee spectrum. Thinking about how we can monitor and continue to assess and monitor staff wellness and provide resources and do it in a way that really supports educators in the way that they need. So.
This might be our last slide.
Yeah,
I think it is.
And so this is just some of those resources that we're using and continuing to use and hoping to continue to advance moving forward. And I think.
Yeah, I think, and just ending with that whole kind of sustainability piece, all of those resources, you have a district login, you could go to Kaiser and create your own Alliance for a Healthier Generation account. And it has so many workbooks and toolkits and things that we can use for free that can help guide our work. So we don't have to reinvent things. We're really applying things that maybe have come from industry that we've kind of neglected in the educational setting. And so that sustainability funding is important, but also finding resources that have the same impact in a cost-effective way. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Questions?
There we go. I just want to say thank you. You were just talking about the 40-hour work week, and obviously you guys have put in some extra time. And I value the staff, the employees, everybody that's here, and I know it's a job that's got a lot of stress associated with it, and it's hard when you do something you love to not go overboard. And so I just want to applaud you guys for taking the time to recognize our people and their needs and come up with a program that's going to help. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to say that, you know, we got through the pandemic and then we had our financial piece and we're hitting that ahead of time. And so I think that what we wanted to recognize is that those cuts were across our district from every single unit and the workload and other things. We're trying to figure out how to do that. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard for district staff, it's hard for all of us, and we're working together for that common purpose, our kids, and we need to be able to manage it, and we need to be able to talk about those things. And we also need to be able, just professionally, to communicate that with our community, right? That 24/7 world, we need time to disconnect too, and how do you do that in a way that's respectful, that we want to be here for your students and your children, because there are kids too, but we also need to have some time away and separate and be able to just say, this is my policy and practice, from emailing to communications, a lot of different things that we have opportunity to have more discussion about now that we have a committee. So.
And those stresses that you mentioned, we can't take away always the stresses, but when we come together and work together to support each other, it makes it manageable. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you both. This is great to see the kind of the evolution of this grant and how it's being applied and implemented. One of the things that struck me when we met with Dr. Johnson last week too is a lot of, particularly around aspects of mindfulness, is how much that those concepts are already very much employed and embedded in high performance athletes, in, you know, really competitive corporate America and things like that. It's you know, it's part of their professional culture very much so. And so I appreciate that it's not a lot of it's taken some time to get into other industries, first responders being one, certainly in education as another, for any number of reasons. I'm not sure why, but I'm glad it's here. And I think too, particularly when you look at, like I look at my own kids, within their participation in sports, they have been doing this from the time they were little. So it almost is like a generational type of thing, that, you know, the idea of mindfulness and reflection and sort of thinking about your thinking, right? That metacognition. So this is really exciting. And I love that. I mean, if I could, you know, sing your praises a little bit more, if I recall, this is the only grant in the nation that they have seen that's really targeting the well-being and around educators. So I think that also speaks to the innovation aspect of our strategic plan. So thank you guys again.
Can I just do a little bragging also from our meeting last week? It was really, I mean, I was excited to come in and learn what was going on and what the focus would be from the national, I don't know, from the grantee. And so in that room was some of our, so Carol was there, Preston was there, Dan DeZone from HR was there, Hannah was there, and then you invited a couple of board members to come. And from the NEA to say, they've never sat in a room with that group of people before. I think it just speaks volumes to the relationships that you have built here, to what we have. And he just kept commenting on how unique the school district is, from the visits in the schools to the way the students were interacting, the utmost professional staff that he saw, to the care with which this grant has been written, received, and implemented. So kudos to you. I mean, this is really, truly putting Peninsula School District on the map again for something so wonderful. So we're just thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you for letting us come and check that out with you. And also thank you for, I know this is something that originated with the association, but for focusing on all staff members and including everybody in that, and our students, just for building something that focuses on wellness for this whole district. I think very well done.
Well, I just want to thank Carol and all the PEA participants. I have had the opportunity to go to the Yoga Calm, both of the activities. I have to say it was the best morning. I did not have to wear shoes. I got to wear socks. And I know that Christy Fisher would love to come and do an activity with the board if the board was so inclined. Movement is health. And I know that the leaders there, one of the comments was, I'm just a teacher. And I said, oh my goodness, that you are a leader in this work. And so just really, I think that might be a great next step, to have them come and be able to talk just briefly about how it affected them, and certainly have Christy maybe with two of those little activities. I think would be awesome for the board to be able to. You can keep your socks on and your shoes on, David.
It's really better
There's
without
breathing.
shoes, though.
There's breathing. It helps you regulate.
But lastly, I would just say, as the largest employer in Gig Harbor, Key Peninsula area, it is important that we see our job as a business as well. And when we have amazing people that want to work here, we only have better options for kids. So it really does translate directly. So thank you for your partnership. And I look forward to your national conference speaking ability. That is your challenge.
It is
and
it's my growth area.
And the golden ticket for more grants. So
Yes,
thank you for
might have
that.
been said, so. Thank you. I do appreciate, though, I was able to offer like a Oprah moment to the staff. So when they got their boxes and they're like, open it up, and it's like, you get a kit, you get a kit. And just the things in that kit are not that expensive, right? So when we're making up our list for next year and there's things that we can give forethought to that will support those things, it's an easy ask, right? Yeah.
Any questions from the students? And I also realized, Ashley, I might put you on the spot. I did not ask if you had questions about budget presentation. Anything for wellness or budget?
Right? Do you want to do yoga too? Mindfulness? We can arrange that.
I was actually curious about something in the budget presentation. I was just curious for the federal grant survey thing. How is that currently being communicated to parents and families?
It went out through Parent Square
Mm-hmm.
to all families, and they don't need to go seek out and search their email for it, because we're going to just continually resend it.
It will be
We want
sent
that
again.
Participation, so it will go out again. But when you get it, click it, a few minutes, and they're done.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some old business this evening. Item 9. Item 9.1 is the policy revision. It's a second reading. So the adoption of the update of policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
Yes. I'd just like to know, there's a little part in here that says participation versus presence as far as counting the actual attendance. Participation, such as turning the video on and participating in discussion or chat, are not to be considered when determining if a student is present or not. These are examples of participation. And so how do we know if a student, like this is probably corporate America as well, when you're attending a Zoom meeting, how do you know they don't just turn it on, hit the mute button, and don't participate all day? How does that qualify? Maybe this is a question for Dan or John, but how do we consider that actually butt in seat? They attended all day. If they just logged in and didn't participate or do anything. Obviously, if they're in a classroom and a teacher can see them and check them off, how are we making sure that we're fairly tracking students remotely, that we're giving them accurate attendance? Since it does say turning it on, you know.
Yeah, thank you, David, for the question, and that is for online learning. So if anybody was wondering, that's just online learning only, and it is similar to Zoom or any other platform. I don't know that we know. I don't know that we know that they don't log on and then turn their camera off. And I think what the policy says is we are going to separate that from an absence. And then the third piece that it doesn't talk about is actually the student's performance and the student's grade. And so the goal would be that the instruction that's occurring online, if it is synchronous, is significant enough and worthwhile enough that the student must engage in that instruction, where they will show us that they learned something from that instruction when it comes time for the assignment or assessment associated with it. But to answer your question, if they turn on their Zoom and turn off the video and mute themselves, there's no way that we can check other than to see that they are acquiring the information that was presented during the instruction.
Okay, and that's why I asked that forward-loaded question of Ashley, how many days physical sitting in a classroom, if they're not there, does it count negatively towards enrollment? But if we don't know, to quote you, we don't know, if they're sitting there all day, not participation, and they just happen to be able to pass a test or pull off a test and pass it, even if it's just with a lower score. But does that, I don't know how we could qualify them as being present if they don't check in or don't participate other than logging in the morning and logging off. So I don't know if it's...
Well, and I may have to consult with Ashley also, but I would say most of those students, if they are taking only online courses, their enrollment is dependent upon them engaging in the material. So they might turn their Zoom on, they might turn their camera off, but their enrollment, beyond the attendance piece, their enrollment is dependent upon making adequate progress on their learning plan as per their ALE. So that is a big determinant, that the engagement in the learning plan is the big enrollment piece around ALE.
I don't want to belabor it, but like when I'm on a Zoom call with my management team, everyone has to have their video turned on. They want to know you're present. You don't have to say anything, but they want the video turned on. So why are the teachers not requiring the kids to have their video turned on?
Can I? So first off, so we no longer have our Global Virtual Academy, so our actual ALE program. We no longer have an ALE program. So this portion of the policy in itself is not something that we would necessarily be actively utilizing right now. We would utilize it if we ever got to a point where we had another online ALE type academy. What Dan's talking about in regards to the Washington State learning plans, when you have a true ALE program, like vetted through the state as ALE, there is a slew of additional requirements when it comes to having, a 30-minute meeting with the student each week to garner that engagement level, what they're learning, and this is individual meetings between the teacher and the student. So when we're in a true ALE format, it's not necessarily just that Zoom participation. There's a bunch of different measures that end up needing to be followed. In our situation for our school district as it is right now, we do have some students that are doing credit recovery through an online education portal, Edgenuity. But they do so in a classroom with a certificated teacher. So our certificated teacher is there, they're logging onto their device and working through the course material on their computer in front of someone. So that doesn't necessarily negate how do we garner that participation level in a Zoom format. It's just not something that this district is currently needing to deal with because we don't have a program that would align to those type of enrollment requirements.
Okay, so you,
And those credit recovery pieces are not counted as ALE, they are counted as regular
Correct.
FTE students in the building,
Okay.
brick and mortar.
Yep.
all the cross-references and references and legal references have all been deleted. And so I'm just wondering, that little paragraph, I know it's a small portion of this
Yeah.
law policy, for me, is very vague. And I'm just wondering, would it be too challenging to add a reference or something that, I mean, you said there's all this extra stuff, but that's not clear on its face in this policy. How hard would it be to
Yeah.
add that in so that it's not so vague?
You can reference that.
Okay. Yeah, this is simply attendance. Our ALE policy would spell out what is needed in the Washington State Learning Plan.
Okay.
And
we can
again,
tie it.
we can tie it. And again, when we talk about policy versus procedure, intentionally policy is somewhat more broad, where we get into more detail when we get into procedure, because that allows us to be more flexible as things change, where we can add more detail to the procedural part.
We can always throw a reference into the other policy in regards to ALE to be able to tie the
That's
two
exactly
parts.
what I was gonna ask. Could you just do
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
Perfect.
You
Okay.
can do that.
May I add something though? I know it's not common, but, you know, during, our efforts in virtual learning, our teachers were trained in, interfacing through the computer. So there are a lot of different ways, from polls, from surveys, utilizing the chat, that a lot of our students are able to engage and demonstrate that they are participating. So it's not just the camera that is the, you know, evidence that they are there at that moment. There are other ways that a skilled, online teacher can, garner that information and participate with their students.
And some of our students, their home situation is not such that they may want to turn their cameras on from time to time as well. So there are some potential issues there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. Is there any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve item 9.1?
I make a motion, we approve 9.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Lori. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9.1 has been approved. Item 10 on our agenda is new business, of which we have none, so we will roll into superintendent's report.
Hi, good evening. I will be deferring my first couple minutes to quick reports for the following. So Dan Gregory, will you come up and report out about fall athletics and plans for moving forward?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Barr, for giving us some time here under the superintendent's report. Mike Benoit from Peninsula High School is going to join me. Michelle Suter sends her apologies. She was going to join us as well, but she was, yeah, you can do that. Do you need more? She was going to join us, but she was not feeling well this evening and talked to me on the phone. I could hardly hear her because she was losing her voice. What we're going to share with you is both high school principals and athletic directors and myself met last spring, and we kind of recapped the year. And when we look at the idea around sportsmanship and healthy competition, we were not at a level that we wanted to be, and we wanted to make a strong effort to increase our level of sportsmanship and have more healthy competition. And so Mike and Michelle, we're going to share some of the actions that they've taken. I'll jump in where I can. The document that Mike just shared with you, I'm going to start on the first couple of bullets there, because one of the things we started on last spring was organizing an event for the fall. And this fall, on September 6th, and several of you attended, we had a sportsmanship summit. That was facilitated by a gentleman by the name of Rob Miller with Proactive Coaching. He was a very dynamic speaker. We had, I believe it was 20 to 30 students from each of our comprehensive high schools there, as well as 10 adults, whether those were coaches, athletic directors, and or administrators. And that was a really positive event. We've also followed up and done some training with Emma Gillespie. Emma Gillespie is an attorney with Prague, O'Donnell, and Gillette. Emma has a very extensive background around athletics and liability. As a matter of fact, she presents regionally on the topic. And I'm surprised she might not have been maybe at the WASDA session, but she does that kind of work. And Hannah Olson. Hannah Olson is a professor with the University of Washington Center for Leadership in Athletics. And she spoke with a group, both Emma and Hannah spoke with a group of building administrators, athletic directors, and our school safety officers when it comes to liability and managing events. And Mike and Michelle, we're going to share what they learned and how they're implementing some of what they learned into, along with their athletic directors, into our practices around athletics and athletic events. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike to go through some of the other bullets.
Thanks, Dan. First of all, I just wanted to shout out to Blair and Ross for last week and celebrating everything that was positive about winter, or fall sports and the celebrations, and the students did such a great job. I think our effort now is to talk about what does it look like moving forward, and how do you could hear all the positives about what the sports arena does for kids in learning and teaching and learning. And every once in a while we have some challenges that come our way, and we're really trying to work together to make sure that we can continue to provide great experiences for our kids as a way to create memories, as a way to strengthen our community. So we've been working a lot on this year. We started just a few weeks ago having weekly meetings with Gig Harbor High School, Peninsula and Gig Harbor, to talk about just our communication, our expectations around athletics, and how we're planning for upcoming events. Have a meeting tomorrow morning with Ross and Blair and Michelle, just looking at some of the events that we have in January and how to appropriately plan for those events. At Peninsula, I'm sure at Gig Harbor also, we have weekly scheduling meetings. There's a lot of events. There's events, several events every week. So we sit down and we meet and we look at the calendar to make sure we have appropriate supervision. So we do that on Friday mornings. Look at next week's calendar and make sure all our events are covered from a safety supervision place. Our athletic directors at the schools meet. They have parent meetings at the beginning of the season. They have coaches meetings, and just talking about safety, talking about communication, talking about with parents appropriate use of social media. What does a good spectator look like? How do you support your student, and how do you advocate for your student appropriately, when it comes to maybe a conversation you want to have with a coach. Our coaches go through some training. They go through safe school training on a number of different things. Learn about rule updates, leadership expectations. We just started hosting our basketball games this year. Our athletic directors meet with the officials before the competitions, and they talk about how they're going to call the game. They talk about rule changes that they need to be aware of, and they talk about how to support each other. How does the school administration support the officials? There's been a lot of events the last couple of years. You've seen things in the news that have happened. Events have actually been canceled because we have a hard time finding refs. So how do the student athletes, how do the coaches, how do the fans respect the fact that these officials, are calling a game, and we need to give them the opportunity to do that in a way they're not feeling threatened or harassed. So, so our athletic directors meet with them, talk about rule updates, and like at the end of the competition, help them get out of the gym quickly into a safe place. And sportsmanship banners, hopefully you have a link you'll be sent. This is a link you can see that we are producing banners that are Peninsula School District banners, Peninsula High School banners, and Gig Harbor High School banners with similar messaging that will be like six feet tall. We're ordering 4 for each school. We're ordering some for the stadium, and they'll be out at competitions. They'll be very visible so people can see them. And it's very positively stated about what it looks like to be a good spectator and a good fan, and how do we support our athletes. Also support from security. Depending on the size of the event, we will have different numbers of security on hand. I said this at our last meeting, the SSOs, the school safety officers, so valuable. It's been such a great investment. Really grateful for that, but also having Pierce County and Gig Harbor on hand too, if we think we might need a little extra support and visibility there. Let's see. Also, just working with the district about communication when we have some big events coming up, like the fish basket when we play in basketball. How are we getting communication out to our families and to our students about expectations and how to run a really positive and effective event. So working with the district on that, so the same things are going out from all the schools to our community. Also scheduling of games. We have some capacity issues. Our gyms get really crowded on certain games, and so how do we schedule them in a way that allows us to accommodate as best as possible the crowds that we might have. We even talked to going to a neutral site for some games, but that creates a whole nother set of issues that are challenging. So these are conversations that we're having when we come together for our weekly meetings. Again, talking about the officials, there's a new rule that the WIAA is enforcing, the stop play rule, where if fans are inappropriate, shouting inappropriate things, if players are inappropriate or getting too aggressive or physical, the referees are instructed to stop the play. And the game will not continue until the behavior is corrected. And so that's another reason why we need to be working with the officials, so that if they choose to stop the game, that we help them with whatever's needed. But also, if we may direct them to stop the game, if we see something in the crowd that that's not safe. And just being intentional about setting the right tone about what we allow and don't allow. So, and then finally, the rivalry game piece. We just a lot of times we've had different themes, cowboy theme, construction worker theme, and both Gig Harbor and Peninsula have agreed when we play together, it's just going to be team spirit, team pride, Peninsula Seahawks, Gig Harbor Tides. These are the kind of things that we're working on. We're meeting regularly about them. I think I skipped this one about leadership and staff. Like we're working closely with our leadership teachers, meeting with them tomorrow after school just to talk about the upcoming events that are coming in January. Also, we'll be meeting with the students. There's a link to the sportsmanship slide that we put in our homeroom, the sportsmanship covenants that we came up with from the fall training. Also, the video that was created jointly with all the high schools is linked into that also. But we are going to work with our leadership kids. 2 of them are right there, Peninsula High School, and work with the Gig Harbor leadership kids to create a joint message from both of them that we can share out on social media that is student-led, student voice about what we hope for, what we expect during these competitions.
I would just add 2 things to what Mike said. The messaging, we talked about what that messaging would look like. I just have to compliment again Ross, Blair, Mike, and Michelle. The banners that they ran by me, they did a really nice job on those, and we just want that consistent messaging so what people are hearing and seeing is the same thing they see when they walk into the gym that night. And whether you guys have been tapped for this already or not, we really want that student voice to go out there, not only for students, but for the adults that are going to attend. They may or may not listen to us as adults, but if it's the students, whether it's the students in leadership or the students that are on the court, hey, that's where the power comes, especially when it goes to adults. And then finally on the stop play, I just want to clarify what Mike said. That is not only for competitors on the court or the field or in the pool or on the cross-country course. You don't see too much of that. But it's also for the fans. It's not just a referee's call that it's time to stop until we remedy this. It's also can be the game manager or administrators there. We've also talked a lot about intentionality as we supervise games. Where are people going to be? What are they going to wear so that we know they're game managers? Where are they going to sit so that they can closely monitor both students in the stands and parents in the stands so that we're aware of what's going on. if we're all standing together in one spot, we're not really spreading out and monitoring appropriately. So that intentionality has been a big part of our conversation as well. We know time is tight. We know we've got another presentation to go. If there's any quick questions, we can take them, but we can also answer questions offline outside of the board meeting if there's any specifics that you want to talk with us about particular schools.
Just a quick comment. Thank you so much for your work on this. More for the board. I found this interesting. The subject of the stop play rule came up in a District 3 board meeting that I was at recently, and some districts shared a statement that they will read on the PA if the play is stopped. And in my head, this would be more, I think it's more confusing for the people in attendance when it happens during a football game, because the play might stop and it might be unclear why the delay, but basketball, it might be more obvious, or a sport where the spectators are closer in earshot, maybe to what. Anyway, all that to say, I believe, my understanding was that the district has the opportunity, if they choose to create their whatever statement you wish to convey to the people in attendance if you have to stop play. So thought that was a good way for them as far as messaging.
I think Mike is jotting that down so they can talk about that tomorrow morning when they meet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to think, one of the districts had, I want to say it was Camas or some place like that. They had a really good one that we all agreed was one of the best. So I'll find out who it was and get it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. As I call John Yellowlees up, I would just like to say that today we had our winter 2023 Superintendent Student Symposium here, and we tackled basically 2 ideas. One was a cell phone policy, and we had the YMCA Bridge of Hope. We had facilitators that facilitated with a pretty strict protocol for all students to be part of it. And so we actually will have data, real data for you with student voice. And we had several students. Where is Chris? Yeah. Chris, we had about 12 students that said that they would be willing to come and speak to the board or so. So it was really in depth, and it was really, really well done. So I want to thank the YMCA Bridge of Hope group. There were 5 individuals that came. They were adults, and they have a program that they bring that out to the community when you have discourse or people not agreeing. Lo and behold, people don't agree, and how to bring out that conversation in safe ways. So it was really a great experience. Second one was we had our students start with our state of play data, which is the outside data. I believe that I sent all of that information to you, and having students give student voice around that. So we just really started it. We really didn't have a lot of time, would you say? I had quite a few staff here. We had about 45 minutes. But we had students self-identify that they wanted to have further conversations around that. And so maybe our board reps would like to be part of that as well. So we will have more data for you. And thank you for being the teaser and the closer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Barr and Board of Directors and student reps. And I will be brief. I have 2 quick teaching and learning updates. So number 1, as you all remember, back in the fall of 2021, we used to have a PACE program at Minter Creek Elementary. That program served Evergreen, Minter Creek, Voyager, and some students from Purdy. And a decision was made back in 2021 to relocate that program from Minter Creek to Purdy Elementary. And since that time, we've heard loud and clear from the school board, from Superintendent Barr, from our staff and community that there's a strong desire to relocate and reestablish a program on the Key Peninsula at one of our Key Peninsula schools. So I'm pleased to share we've been exploring possibilities with our teaching and learning team, and we've talked about a new program on the Key Peninsula. You should each have a card in front of you. Looks a little bit like this. So I want to thank Lisa Ray for her artistic skills in developing this card, and Joy Giovannini and Natalie Wimberly for their work on this. I will read this since we don't have a slide for it. You each have a copy. Our student rep should have a copy of this also. So the card says, Peninsula School District is excited to announce the introduction of the Eagle Quest Outdoor Learning Program, scheduled to begin in the fall of 2024 at Evergreen Elementary. Our mission is to create an inclusive and enriching educational experience that prioritizes highly capable identified students while warmly welcoming others to our community. Grounded in STEM, project-based learning, and set amidst Key Peninsula's state parks, streams, and forests, this innovative program will provide authentic learning experiences that foster independence, confidence, creativity, and problem solving. We look forward to building a vibrant and inclusive educational environment in this unique program, and we're excited to share more information with the board and community in January of 2024. So, super exciting. This is, as Creston said, just a teaser, just an introduction. We will have a full report to the board in January to talk more about this program and what it will look like. And it's great. It's exciting. It's hopefully it'll look a little different than what we had on the Key Peninsula before, but that focus on outdoor learning in STEM, and we hope it to be a very inclusive program, and we will share more in January. So moving on to the second thing, if I may. Last board meeting, which was just a week ago, feels like longer than that, but just last Tuesday, the teaching and learning team presented a curriculum report to the board. We talked about our new website. And one of the curricula on that website is our elementary ELA curriculum. So as you all know, that's Reading Wonders, and that curriculum was adopted back in 2015, so quite a while ago at this point. And we have been looking and weighing at various different options and have come to the conclusion that it is time to go through a reading adoption at the elementary level. Curriculum, despite being, 8 years old now, we've had some gaps in that curriculum. We've tried to work hard over the last few years to fill those gaps with ECRI and letters training, which is ongoing. But we have decided that we will go through a reading adoption, and we will share more about that timeline when we meet in January. So that process will begin this winter. We'll have a formal written plan to share with you, and that will include an outline of the entire adoption process. It will include timelines. It will include budget and associated costs. So we will, again, just a preview of that, not a formal report tonight, but we'll bring that to you in January when we return from winter break. So those are 2 updates from teaching and learning.
Thank you, John, for being the closer of 2023. If there are no other questions. Oh,
we have questions.
I was wondering if you do relocate the program to the KP school, is there still going to be one at Purdy or no?
Yes, we're not talking about closing any programs. We're just going to reestablish a new program on the Key Peninsula, but maintain what we have at Purdy. We do look at that every spring. We look at all of our programs and enrollment and attendance, but there's no plans as of now to change any of that. Good question. Okay, thank you.
All right. Very exciting news. I'm looking forward to January's meeting. Okay, item 12, last but not least, board discussion and comments. So where do we start with Lori last time? Let's start in the middle.
Sure. We went to the end, so sure. Well, last week I had the pleasure to attend the annual Chamber of Commerce luncheon for Gig Harbor. They talked about Santa's Castle. We also had Major Garner come over from the JBLM 201st EMIB. You can spell that out later. But they do volunteer work in the community. They've been a long-time chamber partner, and they worked with the Greater Gig Harbor Foundation last year doing road cleanup, and they brought some of their soldiers over to participate as panelists in the Students of Distinction, and they were invited to the Students of Distinction Award, so it was nice to have him there. He gave a really cool analogy, 5 handshakes, about how Gig Harbor came to be in like 1800 to today, and how all these different people knew each other, and the coincidences, sort of like the Kevin Bacon effect, sort of. It was pretty neat, his little thing. And then I got lucky enough to win the raffle, and Creston and I got to wear silly-looking glasses, so it was pretty fun. And then the Tide Hawk annual AMI Passing Review and Awards was last week. It was amazing. I would say we have 116 cadets right now in the Tide Hawks. We need to get 14 more to get to 130 to become a JROTC instead of a and in NDDC, whatever it stands for. But to be a full-fledged JROTC, we just need to hit 130 students. If those cadets, or if you know kids that might benefit from being in the JROTC program, I would highly recommend it. I really wish they had this back when my kids were in high school. I know all 4 of them would have greatly appreciated and benefited from the camaraderie and the leadership and everything from being a part of this program. It like they said, it's not to recruit military people, it's to build leadership, confidence, camaraderie, sense of belonging. If you look at the diversity of the students that are in the Tide Hawks, it's quite, like I say, it's quite diverse. But I've seen these students over the last couple of years now, and I was telling Natalie, some of them, how they developed over the last couple of years. When I first saw them as young, little, uncoordinated kids, and now they're much more erect and confident, and you can just see how much they've improved year over year. They marched, the drill team, they just march and march and march and march. They went on for a long time. They didn't miss a beat. They got perfect score on the review from the area manager who came down from NAS Whidbey Island. Perfect score, 10 out of 10. Super, super proud. They had a young man come and do a single rifle drill, spinning his rifle and all this stuff. Didn't miss a beat. Unfortunately, his Go Navy beat Army didn't quite turn out like we had expected, but it was really, really great. We had Admiral come over from Navy Region Northwest. He took the time out of his schedule to come and attend, speak, and address the students. Just really, really fantastic. If you don't have kids and cadets, if you don't have any desire, just come to watch how cool it is to see the pride. End it at that. It was awesome. It was awesome. So that's it.
Well, piggybacking off that, just an event open to the community. There's so many these next, before we take a break. So I just want to encourage everyone to go. I was at the AMI with David, same thing. Just, there's a lot of my past military experience I don't want to remember, long hours at sea, mid-watches, but then stepping into that room and the camaraderie, it's so special. And to see all of those kids in that place that they belong. And I think we have to give a shout out to Command Master Chief Stockton and to what he has built there. It's really fantastic. And then follow on with that, there's events at almost all of the schools that the community and parents are invited into. Any opportunity to stock the staff room, to support our teachers, to get them the treats too, I encourage everybody to take it. And really looking forward to as we finish out this year and start 2024.
Just one thing. We talked about the transportation issues, and let me make 2 things. We need drivers, so put that out there to the world that we need drivers. And one of the things you talked about was the KP and the challenges out on the KP for people getting around. I grew up here on Peacock Hill, and back then you could walk on the roads. I used to walk. We're out by the county line, and I could walk down in town and walk back, and it's just not that way anymore. We're not rural anymore. There's too much traffic, and so it's not safe. So we've got to look beyond what we have right now. We've got to look at providing safe pedestrian pathways alongside of our rural roads. If you go out to Evergreen Elementary School, there's a perfect example of a roadside path that's on the other side of the ditch that fits into the rural community that's a safe section of road. I've seen that in other places. Europe has a lot of that, and they've evolved for thousands of years to have that. I think we need to look beyond 20 years, beyond 50 years, and look at how we want this community to look in 100 years from now, 500 years from now, and building those our roadways to have pedestrian access, even in the rural areas, is something we've got to look at. I'm very disappointed when I go sit down with Pierce County in planning sessions and stuff like that. They're only looking at 20 years. They're not looking at long term. And we have to push, really, when we do capital facilities or something like that, we have to look at long term. We'll look at schools. But safe pedestrian pathways is something that we could push. We need to talk to our legislators about, our representatives about, when they fix these roads, to make them safe for our kids to walk, bike, and get around on. It's not out of the question. So we're working on that on the KP. I'm part of also the Key Peninsula Community Council. So we're pushing one segment right now to try and create a roadside path just in Key Center going to the Red Barn. And it's just to showcase it so people can see what it's going to look like. Hopefully get a lot of support. And it needs to happen here in the harbor too. I don't know how many times I've been driving along a road and suddenly there's somebody walking on the white line. And if it's one of our students, need to really heed. So I just ask that we all start looking at that and try to look at long-term solutions.
Okay. I just want to piggyback off that. When Crescent and I were at the Superintendent legislative session in Tacoma a couple weeks ago, this is one of the things that they brought up. Like if you look at an example, when Artdale Elementary School was built, there's a sidewalk right in front of the school, and it ends on each side, and that's in. But when, you know, they did bring up the fact that to do that, especially like on the Key Peninsula, it's almost from a capital budget. It's just absolutely impractical. You know, they don't even give us enough money to run our school buses to be able to say now to build sidewalks so all the students can walk to school. We're very fortunate that this is a walk and ride your bike school, that this was intentionally built that way. But we did address that. I didn't bring that up at a meeting a week ago. That was one of the things that they said that they'd like to see. It was one of the things that the legislatures, that they wanted to take to them about safe walkways to school. It's just, there's not everywhere where we have schools were built and designed like what we have around Swiftwater. It's just not practical, especially on the Key Peninsula. They don't have the budget to build sidewalks along Highway 302. It's just not, they brought that up. It's just, some of them are just impractical to do it, but.
Right, it's not for the school district. We don't have the money to do it, but as somebody develops a piece of property,
yeah,
or moves along, and I've argued with Pierce County for a long time that our public works money, there is a lot of money there that's going away. I know what those dollars are. And when you look at those dollars, we're paying for a whole lot of improvements over on the other side of the county.
Yeah.
And so public works dollars, we're shipping away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money that could come back to this community to get an equitable portion.
Right. I just don't know, and when he brought it up, I just don't know if Pierce County, if it's Pierce County's role to do that, Pierce County doesn't have the budget to do that.
Right.
They'd have to look for other opportunities, but I'm saying they did bring that discussion up at that meeting.
Right.
And it just really didn't go anywhere, because we just know to try and put sidewalks and walk paths in the majority of Pierce County schools, is just, there's no budget.
If we start picking away at it though,
Yeah.
every time they make road improvements, every time they build a bridge, you know, you just have to, you just have to chip away at it.
Yeah, and I had a client in my branch yesterday that, a lot of you know, I won't say the person's name, but works over in the Port of Tacoma, works in the Tacoma Tide Flats, hires CDL drivers, and she said she's flat out hiring away our drivers. And so, but, you know, you just, the professional CDLs over in the Tide Flats make $75 or $80 an hour to drive those trucks, and we don't get the budget from OSPI to pay that kind of money for bus drivers, you know, so just laying it out, she said.
I'd just really like to get to the cookies and hot chocolate portion of this meeting. Just one comment. I was lucky enough to be invited to a delicious taco lunch at Henderson Bay High School today with their Rotary Interact Club, and Sarah was there, and she, along with about 8 of her peers, were hosted this event where they told about what the Interact Club does. And I won't go into the specifics of that, but all kinds of exciting projects and trip to Guatemala and all kinds of things. But I was really struck by one thing, which has happened to me before when I visited Henderson Bay, but today especially. And it comes to mind because you guys from Peninsula were talking about belonging and such and working toward that. Every one of you, that these 8 students, I don't know, 8 or 10 of you that were sharing, they were brave enough to have a panel and they answered questions, and it was led by also one of the students. And they just talked about what led them to come to Henderson Bay and what they loved about Henderson Bay, and really shared the difference in how they felt before going there and how they feel now. And the thing that stood out to me was a massive and overwhelming sense of belonging from these students, and in different places in their journey. And they all had very different paths, as you may or may not know, to getting there. Some had started there as freshmen and some had come later, and their journeys and their they all had maybe at some point along the way not been thriving for very different reasons. But the one thing that was very noteworthy was the staff, the work the staff does to help everyone feel like they matter and like they're loved. And every single student was just really brave and shared exactly that, just that they love coming to school. And it's still hard, and they still hate getting up early, and all those things don't go away just because you go to Henderson Bay. But you guys did a great job. I thought you crushed it today, and it was really a joy to be there, and I'm just really excited for you. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. My gift to all of you tonight is to keep it short. This is not the end of a school year, but sometimes it feels like an end just because the end of this calendar year. So I want to thank everyone for a tremendous end to the 22-23 year and beginning of the 23-24 year. I hope you all have a wonderful break and time off. I want to give just a couple of shout outs. Thank you to Tanya and our food services tonight. So please take cookies and some hot cocoa with you. And something I don't know that we've said here, our eyes in the sky back there somewhere, Jordan and Jaden, who come and set everything up for us. They make sure that this is presented online and available to watch on YouTube. They do a really fantastic job. So I know you guys are watching. Just want to say thank you. So happy holidays, wonderful break, happy New Year, and we will reconvene here January 16th, 2024, 6 o'clock in the evening at Swiftwater Elementary. And with that, at 8:36, we're adjourned.